I wondered if you ever feel lonely anymore.
Hmm. No, I don't feel
No.
lonely. But I am sometimes, like right now in this week, acutely aware that I'm alone. And I'm acutely aware of that because there's something happening with me. Something has begun to happen that is the disillusion of this life identity, like the Mary Read identity in this life. And as that's been going on, it's like things are just getting unplugged from old beliefs. And as it's unplugged, I see it. And it may be a childhood moment, it may be a memory of something that's seen in a different way than I remembered it. And it literally feels like exactly like this, that things are just getting unplugged and then it's just going away and it's dissolving, dissolving. And it's causing me to see my whole life in a very different way. And just like an hour before I got on this call, a whole different experience with my mother and my father, and looking at what I believed were my feelings back then. And were they really? Like, there was more to it. Like, I'd always, how you tell a story about your childhood and there's just that one line story and that thing, but actually there's layers and layers and layers to it. So I've been experiencing the layers and layers and layers, and I'm aware that I'm just doing this all by myself. I need to be alone somehow, dissolving me. And ultimately what it's leading to in that aloneness is settling into the truth of who I am. So when all of these old networks, if you will, get untangled and undone, then what's left? Right? The only thing that's left is that truth, the goodness that I am. It's all settling into that. But in the meantime, it's a little weird. It's a little odd. It's a little sad in some ways about I've always felt alone because I grew up without a way to feel safe. My mom left, my dad was abusive. So there wasn't a sense of belonging and community that I grew up with. So I always had that sense of being alone, being alone, being alone. And when you think about it, we're always alone in our thoughts, right? There's always that sense of it's just me in here trying to figure out my way through the world and whatever. And so it's when all of that begins to dissolve, then it comes back down to who is it that feels alone? What is it that feels alone? And in a separation consciousness, that's how we feel, right? So
Yeah.
just everything that's piled upon that sense of aloneness or loneliness begins to be seen and then healed, right? Awakening to these aspects of alone that aren't really true, but that are only experienced in a separation consciousness. All of the things that alone has felt or believed. Perhaps most people have that sense of aloneness. I mean, in a separation consciousness, that would make great sense. But I suppose if you grew up in a house where you really feel loved and a sense of belonging, and you always feel safe, and there's a great deal of joy and family connection and things that make you feel like there's a place and a way in which you belong, right? So, but I think a lot of people don't have that. I think a lot of people didn't grow up that way. So I'm really happy that we're evolving into ways of learning and growing and expanding and exploring that aren't so painful, that aren't so pain inducing, of things like loneliness or aloneness, or all of that, that we're coming into a place of an innate remembrance of belonging, an innate experience of that as we go. And